Good day, everyone! So for today's video, let's talk about portfolio and scoring rubrics. But before that, let me introduce myself first. So I am Vanessa Salva, a BSN Social Studies 3 student. So I'll start with portfolio. So what do you mean portfolio, or what type e-portfolios will student create? Let's break down the 4 most popular types of how they're used. So there are 4 main types or function of e-portfolios in school and higher education. So let's start with number 1. Showcase or presentation portfolio, a collection of best work. So this type of portfolios focus on the portfolio as a product and are also typically called professional portfolios or formal portfolios or career portfolios. So the content that's added to showcase portfolio is written after the learning takes place, often with reflection from the student. So some schools adopt the mantra of collect, select, reflect, and connect. The connect elements is uninteresting. It involves sharing student work with others, probably beyond the teacher, and actively seeking an audience and feedback. Second, process or learning portfolio, a work in progress. So the second type of portfolio that we commonly see is more of a running record of learning. The purpose is to capture the learning process. It is also called a development portfolio, a reflection portfolio, or a formative portfolio. So entries and artifacts are added during the learning process. A process portfolio is not always a collection of a student's best work. It can include a variety of learning attempts or unpolished documentation along with reflection on struggle and challenges. Number 3. Assessment portfolio, used for accountability. The assessment portfolio is used to document what a student has learned or demonstrate that they have mastered elements of the curriculum. So here, reflective comments will focus on how artifacts align with curriculum objectives. So these types of portfolios may be more formal than a showcase or process portfolio. While they may be very useful within the school environment to provide evidence of learning to teachers and administrators, an assessment portfolio may be less useful for overall students' development. Number 4, a hybrid approach. The 4th type of portfolio you'll commonly come across is a combination of the showcase, process, or assessment portfolio. So what is beautiful in using portfolio is that you do not have to choose. You can do both. Thus, this shows the students' progression over time, or the learning, or just the best stuff. There are considerable benefits to both overtime and combination. So from my experience, is the best path to pursue. So knowing which types of portfolio you will be focusing on will help inform decision around choosing a platform and building a template portfolio. So that's all for portfolio. So let's proceed to scoring rubrics. So number 1, what is a rubric? A rubric is an assessment tool often shaped like a matrix which describe levels of achievement in a specific area of performance, understanding, or behavior. So there are 2 main types of rubric. So first, the analytic rubric. An analytic rubric specifies at least 2 characteristics to be assessed at each performance level and provides a separate score for each characteristic. So for example, a score on formatting and a score on content development. So there are advantages and disadvantages. So, first, advantages. So, it provides more detailed feedback on students' performance, promotes consistent scoring across students and between graders. And the disadvantages is, it is more time-consuming than applying a holistic rubric. So you can use this rubric when you want to see strengths and weaknesses, and then you want detailed feedback about students' performance. Then, second type is holistic rubric. A holistic rubrics provide a single score based on an overall impression of a student's performance on a task. So the advantages is, quick scoring provides an overview of students' achievement, efficient for a large group scoring. And the disadvantage is, does not provide detailed information, not diagnostic, may be difficult for scores to decide on one overall score. So, use when holistic rubric is when you want a quick snapshot of achievement, or the single dimension is adequate to define quality. So let's proceed to number 2. Why use a rubric? A rubric creates a common framework and a language for assessment. Complex product or behavior can be examined efficiently, or well-trained reviewers apply the same criteria and standards. And rubrics are criterion reference rather than norm reference. So raters ask, did the student meet the criteria for level 5 of the rubric? Rather than, how will the student do compared to the other students? Then number 3, what are the parts of a rubric? So rubrics are composed of 4 basic parts in the simplest form. Then the rubric includes, number 1, a task description. So the outcome being assist or instructions students receive for an assignment. Number 2, the characteristic to be rated, or the roles. So the skills, knowledge, and behavior to be demonstrated. Number 3, levels of mastery or scale, or the columns. Labels used to describe the levels of mastery should be tactful and clear. The number 4 is a description of each characteristic at each level of mastery. That are the 4 basic parts in the simplest form of a rubric. So let's proceed to number 4, developing a rubric. So there are steps. So step 1, identify what you want to assess. Step 2, identify the characteristic to be rated. There are also called dimension. So specifically the skills, knowledge, and behaviors that you will be looking for. Step 3, identify the levels of mastery, skills, and columns. Step 4, describe each level of mastery for each characteristic or dimension. So describe the best work you could expect using these characteristics. So this describe the top category. So describe an unacceptable product. This describe the lowest category, and develop description of intermediate level products for intermediate categories. Then step 5, the test rubric. So it applies the rubric to an assignment or share with colleagues. So let's proceed to number 5, sample rubrics. So like group participation or holistic rubric, design project or analytic rubric, critical thinking or analytic rubric, or media and design elements or analytic rubric, or writing holistic rubric portfolio. Number 6, scoring rubric, group orientation and calibration. So when using a rubric for program assessment purposes, faculty members apply the rubric to pieces of student work, for example, reports, oral presentation, design, or project. So to produce dependable scores, each faculty members need to interpret the rubric in the same way. So the process of training faculty members to apply the rubric is called norming. It is a way to calibrate the faculty members so that the scores are accurate and consistent across the faculty. So below the direction for an assessment, coordinator carrying out this process. And number 7, suggestion for using rubrics in courses. So use the rubric to grade students' work. Hand out the rubric with the assignment. The students will know your expectation and how they'll be graded. So this should help students master your learning outcomes by guiding their work in appropriate direction. And last, number 8, tips for developing a rubric. So, find and adopt an existing rubric. It is rare to find a rubric that is exactly right for your situation. So, but you can adopt an already existing rubric that has worked well for others and save a great deal of time. So, you can have the other rubrics that is effective and passed for your standards for the performance that you are looking for. Then evaluate the rubric and ask yourself, does the rubric relate to the outcomes being assessed? If yes, then success. Does it address anything extraneous? If yes, delete. Then, is the rubric useful, feasible, manageable, and practical? If yes, then find multiple ways to use the rubric, then program assessment, assignment, grading or peer review, and student self-assessment. And collect samples of students' work that exemplify each point on the scale of level. So a rubric will not be meaningful to students or colleagues until the anchor or benchmark exemplars are available. So expect to revise, then when you have a good rubric, share it. So rubrics are great for students. They let students know what is expected of them and demystify grades by clearly stating in age-appropriate vocabulary and the expectation for a project. And that's all for my report. Thank you for watching.